Hello, all you fabulous writers out there. Let's talk a little bit about how to balance telling your story, using your voice, and speaking your truth with those fears and concerns around not wanting to ruffle feathers, not wanting to burn bridges, and not wanting to maybe come up against some like real calamitous results that might happen from sharing your story. Just depends on what your story is and who it might bother. So this actually came in inspiration from working with a client where we're developing her book and we were talking about some of the personal stories she wants to put in there and concerns that she had around it causing an issue that with certain people that could really affect her like livelihood and her career, things that she really like could not risk happening, right? Now, as a coach for Black creatives, like I am someone who I'm a very big advocate of speak your truth, use your voice, share your story, and fuck all who's got a problem with it. But I'm also someone who stays getting fired from places. So, but I think it's really important for us to use our voices and to share our stories because our stories are powerful. And especially as Black people and Black women, our voices we've spent so much time and so many like centuries having our voices silenced and our stories ignored and so much of our experiences being dismissed that in this time when we can really speak up, it is really monumentally important that we do and that we share what we have to share. And our message, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, that our message goes out to the people that it's meant to go out to. So when it comes to sharing your truth and sharing your story or using your voice and then these fears, and I use these three different categories because I think that they require a different approach. So for example, if you're just worried about ruffling people's feathers, oh, somebody's going to be bothered by it, someone's going to have an attitude or they might be mad. For me personally, that's not enough to stop me from speaking my truth because I spent so much time being silenced and I'm not willing to be silent anymore. I can't afford to be silent anymore because I have a responsibility to the people that I'm helping to speak up. And I have a responsibility as someone who is a coach, who is teaching people how to use their voice, to also use my own voice. So when it comes to, oh, I don't want to ruffle feathers, first things first, for all of this, you cannot control how people are going to respond to your work. You don't know how they're going to respond. You cannot control how they're going to respond. You can guess, you can have expectations, you can have fears around it, but you don't really know until it's out there and they've actually responded, which means that you try not to make a decision on what you write based on what you're afraid people are going to say or do, right? So if we're talking about ruffling feathers, a question that you can ask yourself is, who am I really prioritizing here? Am I prioritizing my need to tell the truth or their comfort to not hear my truth? And if you're prioritizing them over your need to tell the truth, I am always like, your truth and your story are more important than other people's comfort around it. Okay, now if you're talking about burning bridges, that's like taking it a level up. They're not just mad. Now it's like you might be cutting yourself off from people. You might be cutting yourself off from communities. I have done that. I have done that in sharing my story and sharing truth. But in that case, again, you have to ask yourself, like, what is more important to you? Is keeping this connection that may or may not be based in authenticity because you're kind of holding this part back, or maybe not, but like, is that more important, or is it sharing your story and helping the people, especially if it's nonfiction, because I know a lot of nonfiction writers who are sharing their story to help people, is keeping this connection more important than what your message can do if you share your story. And that is for you to decide. Nobody else can really make that decision for you, but it is definitely a question of fear, and your fear of judgment, your fear of like rejection, fear of those things that might be playing into what you put in your creative work, in your writing piece. Now, that's also why I work with creatives, is to help them work through that so that they can really stand in that power of their voice. And for me, like, some things I'm willing to give up certain people or certain community, because the way I feel is, if you can't handle my voice and you can't handle my truth, then you don't belong in my life, and that is something that I can decide, but you have to decide that for yourself. Now, in the third category, we're talking about calamitous results. Like, I might lose this this job that I cannot afford to lose, or I might be in real danger, like, like actual physical danger or something like that. You just don't know. Again, that's a matter of fear, and you have to decide for yourself, like, is it more like, is this worth the risk? Is my story, is my message worth the risk of this thing happening? Am I willing to sacrifice that? Am I not willing to sacrifice that? And there's like, absolutely, I'm not making any judgment on anyone about that. I'm just saying that that's a question you have to ask. Because some people are willing to make that sacrifice, and some people are like, no, I really can't afford to make that sacrifice. So if you're in that third category, what I would say, and that was kind of the situation with my client, what I would say is, if you are writing something, write it from your truth, your authenticity, write it the way that you want to write the story in that first draft, and then you can always change it in revision, right? You can always pull it back if you even need to. You might write it and be like, oh, this is actually fine. I'm totally going to go with this, or you might write it and be like, you know what? I actually need to put more in. Or you might write it and be like, oh, I don't like this, or I need to pull this back. But write it how you want to first, and then you can always adjust it, because that way you're writing from a place of truth, a place of authenticity, and a place of power, and then you can adjust it from there. And that's much better than writing the story or writing what you have to write from a place of fear. Because from a place of fear, you're not really putting what you really want and need to in it, and you're already losing out. When you write it from that place of truth and power, you can always adjust from there. And that's what revision is really for, right? So that is my advice. That is the advice that I gave to my client. And that is going to help you in terms of if you feel like you have to balance speaking your truth and, oh no, what kind of results and these calamitous results that you may not want to have. This will help you to do that, to at least write it from a place of truth. So if you are a writer or a wannabe writer, I do have a free video that will help you to write a really powerful story. In it, I share 3 key elements to a powerful story and how those elements actually have to work together in unison to really bring the story to life, because any one piece that's missing and it's gonna fall apart. So you can go and get that at kristeniris.com/3keys. That's the number 3 keys. It's totally free. You can go watch it and then, incorporate those things into your own story, into whatever your idea is or whatever your project is, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, book, script, any genre, doesn't matter. These 3 key elements have to be there, and putting them together and having them work together will really help you create a powerful piece. So I will see you in the next video and hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you think below.